So there's a couple of talks coming up that students are invited to come to. And definitely I think this one would be of interest to you guys if you're available. So it's going to be about emerging viral diseases, so definitely very related to this class. And so Zika virus, Dengue virus, and another one I can't even begin to pronounce. And Dr. Retard, not the retard that's here, but actually his dad, who's the state epidemiologist, is coming to speak to us, which is really cool. So it's going to be on the second floor, and as I said, I'm going to post this for you guys on Canvas. So it's going to be next Monday at 2:30 on the second floor of the Student Life building, where like the cafeteria is for you guys, second floor of the Lake Maupaw room. So for this one, I will set up an assignment in Canvas for you guys as well. And after the talk, you get to write a paragraph about, what you learned, what you liked, basically, I will be there, so I will know that you were there. But you have to do a little bit more for the points for this one, right? You got to write something. It doesn't have to be, English paper format thing, but, just a paragraph or two about what you learned, right? And whether you liked it or not, feedback. Okay. So maximum amount of 10 bonus points for this one. So I'm going to put, as I said, I'll post that for you guys. So that right after, heck, even during, you could bring your laptop and type away, right? But definitely, come prepared to take notes so that you have something to write. And you're probably going to want to. I mean, I know it's going to be a really good talk. I'm excited for it. This one, not really necessarily microbiology related. How do I get this to go full screen? There we go. This one is another relative of this is Dr. Rosenwig's brother, Seth, is coming to talk on Thursday, April 21st at 3 p.m. And this one is about musculoskeletal health. So I'm definitely interested in what component of the immune system he may or may not talk about in this talk. Again, I'll set up an assignment, you guys write about it, and I'll give you bonus points for that, for going and writing about it. Cool beans? And just when you thought I was done, I have one more. So I have one more that's my baby. April 8th is the Science Expo. And what it is kind of like a science fair where we set up tables in the gym, and several middle school students are going to come, 5th, 6th graders. And I have microbiology tables that I'll have set up where I'll have microscopes. It'll be similar to kind of what's in the lab today, that if you guys go by the lab today. And, I need people to man the tables. And it's an all-day event from 9 to 3. So, sign up for an hour shift, right? Write your little paragraph afterwards. Actually, there's going to be a more formal paragraph for that. I'm waiting to get the thing from Service Learning because it counts towards Service Learning. You also get a certificate for that one, and it goes towards my good graces when you need a recommendation letter from me, which I know a couple of you guys are probably going to be asking me at the end of the semester. So it gives me more good stuff to write about you too, which looks good for your recommendation letter too. Okay? All right, so I'll post all that stuff for you guys on Canvas in the next couple of days so that you can mark your calendars and be able to get those points. Okay, so that's it for that goings on stuff. How many of you guys actually have finished going through this PowerPoint? Was that just a clearing of the throat? I thought it was a laugh for a second. So let's wake you guys up and do a quick Poll Everywhere quiz, my only quiz I got on here. So it's related to one of the classes of antibodies that we're going to talk about today. Let me deploy it. So there's multiple correct answers to this, right? That what you guys type in will just pop up. What secretions contain IgA? So I mentioned this last time. IG is an abbreviation for an immunoglobulin, which is also another name for an antibody. And then we have 5 different classes of antibodies. So this is just one of the classes, and that letter A denotes the class. We're going to talk about all the other classes today, and their slight structural differences for a couple of them, like this one, and you know, where they're found. Like this one is found in secretions. So what's a secretion that our body produces? What do we secrete? Sweat. Ah, they're popping up. We definitely make a lot of mucus, especially when we're sick. I know all too well about that right now. Except mine's more in the form of snot, but it's still mucusy. I think we have all of them. So we definitely produce a lot of mucus, right? It coats our nose, it coats our throat. We produce more of it when we're sick, right? Hence the how awful I sound today. It coats your entire digestive tract to help protect you. It's very important, definitely, for protecting your stomach from eating itself even. That thick layer of mucus helps you keep from your hydrochloric acid digesting your own stomach and the enzymes to digest protein. But it also helps trap any microbes, right, that get into the body. Coat your respiratory tract. And we talked about this before, right? In addition, you have those ciliated cells that are going to help move that mucus that has trapped the bacteria out of the respiratory system. Where with the digestive system, how do we get everything out? We don't need cilia. Instead, it's muscle contraction, right? The normal muscle contraction of moving stuff through our gut also moves that mucus along that may have trapped microbes and kept them from entering deep into our body. Your tears. Continually, you're always producing tears, are always washing your eyes, right? So again, that liquid is washing anything that's getting on your eyes. And it's always going down into your nasal lacteal ducts and drains into your nose, which then drains where? You know this when you're sick because it drains right down the back. Your throat is connected to your nose, right? So it drips down the back, right? Goes down your throat through your digestive system and out the body that way. That's one of your ways that you protect. The saliva that you produce, right? You are constantly taking microbes into your mouth, right? So your saliva not only breaks down your food partially, it also helps, again, coat, trap, right? Because there's a mucousy component to your saliva too. Trap the microbes. And then we even have digestive substances specifically for bacteria that's in our saliva. What's in our saliva that digests bacteria? What enzyme? Starts with an L. Lysozyme. Lysozyme. Degrades peptidoglycan, remember, right? So we've got, you know, tears that are protecting and washing our eyes. We've got saliva that's protecting and washing our mouth. We've got mucus that's taking care of respiratory, digestive, even urogenital, right, especially for women, right, lots of mucus. Help protect that area. So that makes sense that we'd have antimicrobial substances in all of that, right, because it comes in contact with microbes. So why would it be beneficial to have IgA in all of that? Well, IgA is an antibody, right? What do antibodies do? We talked about this last time. The very first thing that they do. They attach to an antigen, right? They specifically attach to that antigen. So breast milk is another one, right? Which of course usually men can produce it, but you know, hormonally, usually just the women actually produce it when it's needed, right? And in this case, why do we produce breast milk? Just for the fun of it? No, we're trying to what? Feed a baby. Yeah. We feed a baby. So again, we're giving this protection to a baby then, right? When we give them the breast milk, we're not only giving them food, we're giving them our antibodies, right? And we're help protecting them. And we're helping protect their gut, right? Because they probably are not making all the antibodies we're making yet, right? And so we make it for them, and that's why nowadays, like, you hear so much more people going back to breastfeeding, right? The health benefits are much greater than formula alone. You know, if you can do it, they highly suggest that you do it, because they can't replicate that, right? Or if we could, it would be very expensive to put antibodies in formula. It's just not feasible, right? Natural is always best, as we're finding out. So let's think about and let's review from last time, right, the importance of what antibodies are doing. And I think I've got a slide for that. But I might just go back over these because I think I've got these animated. All right, so let's think about IgA and where it is, just to start out with. So we know IgA is actually outside of our body, right? Because it's in the saliva, it's in the tears, it's in the mucus, it's in the breast milk. It's not actually in your body, per se, right? Your digestive tract is basically considered an external environment. So when IgA is produced, it binds to antigens, right? Well, if IgA is in our mucus, can it help do this type of protective outcome of binding to viruses and toxins that may be in our mucus? Yeah. What do we call this when we stop viruses from attaching and toxins from attaching? Right, this is an antigen-antibody complex, but what type of protective outcome is this one? This has a particular term. Neutralization, right? You guys need to know these. Right, this is neutralization. Can IgA neutralize? Sure, right? IgA is in our mucus, right? If the viruses come in contact with the mucus, the antibodies can bind to it, and they can stop them from attaching to us. We can neutralize viruses and toxins because their very first thing they have to do is to attach. And they can't do anything if they can't attach. So we essentially neutralize them when antibodies bind to them. This next one, what do we call this outcome? Where antibodies are binding to a bacteria and then a phagocytic cell is coming along and eating it. We call this opsonization, or tagging for destruction. Do you think IgA does this? No, because remember, the mucus is outside of our body. Where are the phagocytic cells? Inside our body, right? So IgA doesn't do any opsonization because it's outside of our body, right? Opsonization happens inside the body. So our antibodies that are inside of our body are going to help protect and do this type of outcome for antibody-antigen interactions or immune complexes. This is where antibodies bind to a pathogen and then interact with complement. So this causes the activation of complement, right? Can IgA do this? No. Why not? Where are your complement proteins? Inside the bloodstream, and then during inflammation they leak into the tissue, right? But they're not outside your body, right? So IgA can't cause this outcome. This is where antibodies bind to, say, flagella or fimbriae. So this can immobilize the bacteria and maybe even stop them from adhering. Can IgA do this? Yeah, this is one of the major protective abilities of IgA, is it being in the mucus. If that bacteria has flagella, but we have IgA against the flagella, then we can bind them up and we can stop them from being able to swim through the mucus. So they definitely get trapped in the mucus by this additional addition of this particular class of antibody, this IgA. So this one is immobilization and prevention of adherence. And IgA is very important to this protective outcome. So the other ability, because antibodies at the very least have two arms, right? Two antigen binding sites. They can bind with more than one bacteria or more than one virus at a time, or foreign cell, and they cause this coagulation effect, or sometimes referred to as agglutination, right, outside the body, or precipitation, but very simply refer to this as cross-linking. Do you think IgA is good at this? Why not? All we're doing is clumping them up, right? So could IgA do that? Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And as we'll find out in a moment, it's a little bit better at doing this than some of the other bacteria, antibodies, because we actually secrete IgA in a dimer form, which means it's not just one Y, it's two, as you'll see in a moment. And I think we have one more outcome. So one of the classes of antibodies that we're going to look at in a moment is IgM. And IgM is the largest antibody complex that we produce. It's actually 5 Ys together, what we call a pentamer. So this one is really good at cross-linking, agglutination reactions. Because as you can see in this other picture, right, it can bind to 5 different red blood cells all at the same time. So it really can clump things up. This protective outcome, right, is unfortunately a lot of times abbreviated in your book as ADCC. Anybody know what that stands for? Right. Antibody dependent cellular cytotoxicity. And this is due to the fact that because of antibodies, this cell, which is what? It's only one lymphocyte that does this, specific lymphocyte, natural killer cell. It's highlighted on the slide, y'all. Look at it again. Put it in your memory bank. Right? So only natural killer cells can do this. Only natural killer cells can recognize antibodies. And notice too, in this case, we're even being specific in the that it's only one class of antibody that it interacts with. It's IgG. So definitely, right, not IgA. Also because, remember, where are natural killer cells? Inside our body. Where's IgA? Outside. Okay, we got it. All right, so let's oh, did I talk? I didn't talk about this last time, huh? Because I think we just got through to the last outcome. So antibodies, we want them to be oriented such that the arms, right, the antigen binding sites are attaching to the antigen. But there are unfortunately some microorganisms out there, and I always like to give you guys real-world examples, so I looked ahead in our book and I found Staphylococcus aureus and Streptococcus prurigens have Fc receptors. And what this means, and they're actually proteins. So for Staph aureus, it's the protein A, and for Streptococcus pyogenes, it's protein G. These proteins act as Fc receptors. And so what they do is they can grab on to the Fc portion, remember this stem portion that sticks out, they can bind to it. So they essentially coat themselves in our antibodies, but oriented in the wrong direction. Because remember, how do our phagocytic cells grab on to antibodies? What part are they grabbing onto? The Fc portion. But in this case, who's grabbing onto it? The bacteria is, right? The staph or the streptococcus is grabbing onto it. Right? This is the causative agent, y'all, Streptococcus pyogenes, that causes strep throat. So one of the bad news for our immune system is one of our protective outcomes, right, that does all this really cool stuff we just talked about, they take it and they grab it in such a way and orient it in such a way that our body can't even recognize our own antibodies and respond to them. They're using our antibodies to disguise themselves, to coat themselves in our own proteins in such a way that we don't see them. Does that make sense to you guys? Kind of crappy, huh? Or smart, depending on how you think about it, right? So as we've talked all the time, right? You know, as I've experienced even this weekend. Even though we have all these awesome ways of protecting ourselves, right? These pretty cool antibodies, we've got inflammation, we've got antivirus protection like interferon, right? We get sick because, at least for a time period, they're able to evade, right? Avoid detection in this case with the coating of the antibodies for a significant amount of time that they cause damage to us. They cause illness. The good news is that eventually, hopefully, you know, our immune system figures it out and saves our butt, or we get treatment, right? Because there are some drugs, there are some antibiotics out there that we can use to fight infections. Before that, if your immune system didn't take care of that, you died, right? So something as simple as strep throat, right, could kill you back before penicillin. So these are our 5 classes. Most of them are in this monomer form, right? What we've already looked at, where you have your 2 light chains attached to your 2 heavy chains, right? You've got that variable region caused by the combination of the heavy and light chain variable regions that binds to specific antigens. And then you have your Hep C region, which interacts with our immune system. You know, interacts with activating complement, right? Can be detected by phagocytic cells, can be detected by natural killer cells if it's IgG. So all your classes at one time or another are in their monomer form. But 2 of them have additional structures that they'll form. So for IgM, this is the very first antibody you produce. It's on the surface of the B cells, which are the cells that produce antibodies. It is their B cell receptor. It's how they directly interact with antigens. But then our cells are going to become activated to secrete these antibodies. So we don't just have them coating our B cells, but we actually secrete them so that they can go into our secretions in the case of IgA. And when it goes into the secretions for our IgA, we form this dimer. We actually put 2 IgAs together. So remember, what are our secretions that have this? Mucus, saliva, breast milk, tears. Believe it or not sweat. It is a secretion, but doesn't have IgA. Not really needed on our skin in general. And again, we don't sweat all the time. Not everywhere. But, the breast milk, again, is for the baby, for its protection of its digestive tract. Mucus, really those openings for us, our digestive, our respiratory, our urogenital. Again, another opening, our eyes, the tears, our mouth, saliva. So in this form too, that FC portion really isn't available for them, right? These two FC portions are tagged together. But the great thing about this one is now you've got 4 antigen binding sites, right? Because we've got 2 monomers put together in a dimer. So again, really good at cross-linking, really good at neutralizing, at preventing adherence and immobilizing bacteria in our mucus, in our tears, in our saliva, in breast milk that ends up in the baby's digestive tract. IgG stays as this monomer. IgA, as we've just said, in our blood, in our liquid phase, in our blood, it is in IgA. It's in this monomer form. But it's just in our blood for a short period of time, if at all, because mostly it goes into our secretions. And when it goes into the secretion, it's in this dimer form. IgD is always in this monomer form. And IgE is also always in this monomer form. IgM, on the B cell, it's in this monomer form, right? But it's embedded in the membrane. This FC portion is embedded in the membrane. When the B cells actually secrete, when they differentiate into plasma cells and actually secrete this class of antibody, they secrete it in this big, huge pentamer form. So how I remember this one is I always remember M, mega big. Like this is the biggest one, right? Mega, it's huge. And also because of that, it does not leave our blood. You don't like my mega huge? It's a good one. So IgM is the very first antibody that we make in response to infection. It makes up 5 to 13%, and again, this is going to vary based on whether you're experiencing an infection or not, right, or an exposure. It's way too big, right? It's mega big. It doesn't leave the bloodstream. That structure we refer to as a pentamer. It's 5 of those Ys, those monomers put together. It's found on the surface of the B cells, though, as a monomer. It is technically the B cell receptor. Is the only antibody that can be formed by the fetus. So even when you're growing in utero, you produce your own antibodies, but only this form. This is the one that will produce against antigens that we refer to as T-independent. Remember our T cells that we mentioned previously? We're going to talk about them again soon. T cells, that communication between a T cell and B cell is sometimes needed for a B cell to produce antibodies. Definitely to switch off from IgM to some other class of antibody. But you can make IgM pretty quickly right away without any help from a T cell. So it's independent of a T cell. But remember, this antibody is limited. It's huge. It gets stuck. It's stuck in the blood. It doesn't leave the blood, right? We don't put it into any of our secretions or anything like that. But it's our first, big guy, right? We send them. We don't waste any time. We send the big monster out first. IgG, on the other hand, is the most dominant in circulation, our longest lasting one. It's secreted in the monomer form. It's the only antibody that can cross the placenta. And unfortunately, for conditions like hemolytic disease of the newborn, this is the one that creates the problems, right? If mom produces this antibody and it crosses the placenta and attacks the baby's red blood cells, is when we end up with that disease that we'll talk about again a little bit later. This is also why, too, you don't want the baby producing IgGs and they cross the placenta. But for the most part, right, this is helpful for the baby, right? As the baby's growing in utero, the mom's protective antibodies can go into the baby of this class. It's also present in the colostrum. What's the colostrum? Ladies, right? It's the first breast milk that a woman produces. And it's different than the milk that you produce later. This one is chock full of all the IgGs your body knows how to make. It's this big, huge present you give to your baby at the very beginning, right after they're born. I forget how long. Might be like 24 hours you produce colostrum. You don't produce it for a very long period of time. And this is why, even if you're not going to breastfeed, they're like, please just give your baby the milk, this milk, right? Give them this milk. Because, again, you're giving them all your IgGs. And this is going to, and their intestines is permeable to this when they're first born, and they absorb these into their body, these protective antibodies. So anything you've been vaccinated against, anything you've been exposed to, you give those antibodies to your baby. And this helps protect them for the first month of their life. About that time, then those antibodies start to degrade, right? And that's when we start vaccinating them, and they start producing their own antibodies. But this gives them pretty good protection. Not to say you should take your newborn to Walmart, but, you know. There's a reason back in the old days people stayed home, y'all. You don't want to expose them to pathogens, right? And it's so hard, right? When someone has this adorable infant in Walmart, you want to walk up and look at it, right? And get close. It's not good. It's not good. You want to protect them. They're fragile. So this is your antibody of memory. And this is the only class of antibody that can do this one very special protective outcome of antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity. Right? That's what our ADCC stands for. And what very important lymphocyte is going to actually kill that cell if it's coated in this antibody? Natural killer cells. So I don't know where my IgA went. Oh, it got stuck with this animation for antibody dependence. So our other one over here shown as its dimer is our IgA, right? So makes up about 10 to 13% in circulation in the monomer form. But for the most part, we produce this, and this is the most abundantly produced antibody, right? Because we produce, I don't even know, but it's an insane amount of mucus daily under normal conditions, never mind when you're sick. So we produce a lot of this to put into breast milk, mucus, tears, and saliva. And again, very important for interfering with pathogen attachment. Because these antibodies bind to the pathogens, it stops them from being able to bind to us and keeps them trapped, say, in the mucus or the tears or our saliva. Or then the baby's mucus in their digestive tract from ingesting the breast milk. IgD, we actually don't know that much about this particular class of antibody. It makes up a very small percentage of circulation and really only seen in later infections. It's a mature antibody response. Again, it's found in the monomer form. IgE is barely detectable in circulation because this one has a very high affinity for two particular white blood cells. Anyone know? Anyone fill this in? Basophils and mast cells. And remember, this is Erica's least favorite antibody. I always say, remember IgE for Erica, because this is the one for allergy, right? And it's directly related to the fact that these guys bind to mast cells and basophils. And so, for allergic individuals like myself, I've made IgE against, say, ragweed pollen. So that IgE is already coating my mast cells and my basophils. Literally seconds after I inhale that pollen, it interacts with these antibodies already on these effector cells. It causes degranulation of these cells. So their lysosomes, their granules contain things like histamine, right, which is a very strong vasodilator, causes inflammation in the immediate area where they were triggered. This is why individuals who experience allergy take antihistamines. But in truth, you take them before you're potentially exposed to an allergen, if you can. Because then the antihistamine's already in the system. When the histamine's released, it doesn't work. It can't bind to the receptors because the antihistamine's already bound to those receptors. So you might think, well, why do we have IgE then? Obviously, its intention was not for allergy, right? Its intention was to respond to things in this fast way that could be harmful. The unfortunate thing is they're the reason for allergic reactions, for reactions to things that unfortunately aren't harmful for some of us. Pollen is not going to grow in my nose. You don't need to get all that upset about it. Does this make sense to you guys? So the 5 classes, right, you need to know their structures, you need to know their basic characteristics, their functionalities. So remember, all of them are found at one time or another in the monomer form. For the B cell, that's their B cell receptor on their surface. But then when it's secreted, it's in the pentamer form. IgA, when it's also secreted in our secretions, it's in the dimer form. Breast milk, mucus, tears, and saliva. So this is a pretty good table in your book, right? Tables are great. You know me, I'm a big fan of tables, right? It summarizes all the important information. So there's a couple of things on here that we haven't gone over just yet because, again, it relates to outcomes. So IgA, IgG, and IgM. Right. What can these guys do? Well, can they neutralize? Can IgA and IgG and IgM, do you think they're good neutralizers? Why not? We already said IgA could neutralize. We're just lumping in G and M now. What else could they do? They could immobilize, right, and cross-linking. All right, when we get to ADCC, though, there's only one antibody, right? Which one? Just IgG, right? Because they have an Fc receptor. Those natural killer cells have an Fc receptor for IgG only. The class of antibody is determined by that Fc portion, by that constant region of the heavy chains. Right? That's how your immune system knows, oh, this is IgG as opposed to IgA or IgM or IgE. So what about for complement activation? There's only 2 antibodies that can interact with the complement proteins and activate complement. IgG and IgM, which makes sense, right? Because, right, in the bloodstream, where complement is, right? IgM is and IgG, right? IgM is strictly just in the blood. It may leak out some when, we have inflammation, but for the most part it's in our bloodstream. But IgG can pretty much go anywhere, but it's very high in our blood. And then opsonization is really just IgG. Because again, it's in the monomer form, it's in our body, and the phagocytic cells have a receptor for the Fc portion of those antibodies. So when we talk about antibodies, yeah, we can get all these protective outcomes, but really what type of antibody and where it's located is really going to determine what really happens at that site under those conditions. Right. So just because you have antibodies produced, you're not always going to get neutralization. That's only going to happen if your pathogen is a virus or a toxin, right? You're only going to get antibody dependent cellular toxicity if you have a cell that's coated in antibodies, and then the natural killer cell recognizes it, and again, only if it's IgG. So it's it's kind of a complicated system, right? But we got pretty much all the bases covered, right? And probably one of the most phenomenal things about this system is the level of detection here. Right? So remember that these antibodies are binding to a specific section on that bacteria, on that virus, on that toxin that may be a protein. I don't have 15 minutes to waste. I don't know about you guys. Every second's important, right? Okay. So, unfortunately, I did not put together our next PowerPoint. But I did want to point out one more bonus opportunity that I forgot for you guys, and a couple of stuff in Canvas. So we will get out a few minutes early today, but not too early. So go to Canvas, Erica. You can do this. So at the beginning of class, if you're late, there's several things that are going on campus in the next 2 months. I'll be posting on Canvas for you, and if you participate, and for most of them, if you do a little write-up on Canvas, you'll get bonus points as it relates to that. Time-wise, I know I'm definitely not going to have time to do it, and I'm realizing that I didn't post it yet. Okay. So midterm grading is coming up, right? They actually extended it, which is great considering I was in the lab setting up stuff last night instead of doing midterm grading. And I'll be in the lab today entertaining high school students instead of doing midterm grading. So I'll be finishing up midterm grading tomorrow. But some of you guys haven't completed this assignment, right, of chemicals used to clean. Make sure you do that because although I probably won't grade it for midterm, I'm going to grade it very shortly after, probably. So you want those points. Because remember, even though the deadline's passed, I'll let you guys still do it because I haven't graded it yet. But just know that that is next on my list. First on my list is I already shut it down though. That web page thing that we did, I just can't see it all on the screen. So I'm going to print it out and I'm going to grade that today. And that is going to be part of your midterm grade. right? That chart that you guys had to fill in. So those of you guys that missed out on it or didn't do something right, you've got a ton of bonus opportunities, right, to make up those points. So that's the good news as it relates to that. So other things that will be in, actually, let me just go to my test student. So that way I'm not looking at anybody's specific grades, so nobody's freaking out. But have a visual for you guys. So when you go to grades, right now, so you see it's listed here, but it's recycled from last semester, so I got to change the date for you guys. So everyone has registered for Connect, yay, but that wasn't worth any points. I've already graded introductions, so everyone should have their points for that. As I said, I'm going to finish doing the grading for this today. Everyone's taken test 1. Everyone at this point should have done the immunology web pages. I'm going to do one more round of grading that today. So if you didn't get it done, so you'll get your 10 points for that. Those were the web pages I wanted you to read at the beginning. The agreement, right? Everyone should have done that as well. If for some reason you haven't, do it today, because that's going to be part of midterm grade. I'm going to grade it today. If it's not done, it's not getting graded. Chemicals to use, do it, right? But it won't probably go into midterm grade, right? And then we have test 2 coming up, 3, 4. Listeria case study is later, right? But you could do it now. No, you can't. I don't have it available for you guys. Different class. Final exam. Okay. Connect assignments for Module 1 will be part of midterm grade as well. And did I already post those for you guys? I think I did. I usually do it after test 1. Know that even though I set deadlines for those, and don't make me set more deadlines, y'all. It drives me crazy. I usually set the deadline like the day of the exam, right? Those deadlines are guidelines for you guys, just like how I am in Canvas. But I can change that to a hard deadline. Please don't make me do that. And the reason why I don't want to do that is what I want you guys to do, and we finished innate, right? I'm not going to spy on you guys right now. But how many of you guys have done the Connect in innate? Pat yourselves on the back. Thank you, right? And so you kind of know where you're at, right? You know, you're like, okay, I didn't really get this in innate. I've got to review it. You want to be doing this now, you guys, not 2 days before the test, because then you're screwed. You really are screwed, okay? These are your self-quizzes, right? And you've got to stay on top of this stuff, right? So if you haven't already studied and taken that, do it in the next couple of days. I'm not kidding you, right? Because that's your best detector of, like, am I really studying properly? Do I really know this? Because you do not want to find out the day of the test you don't know it. Or do your Connect assignment the day before the test and go, oh my God, I don't even know it. I thought I knew this and I don't know this. That's too late, y'all. It's too late. Okay? So don't fall into that. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go through, because it's a pain in the butt. Like, I literally manually have to enter from Connect to Canvas those grades. So I'm not going to update those, right? But if you've got a bad grade, y'all, those assignments aren't closed. You can do them again, right? And I will let you guys do them all the way until, you know, people come begging towards the end of the semester, like, I need 10 points. And I'm like, well, one, I just gave you guys like 5 bonus opportunities, I think. I'm not giving you any more than that, trust me. Right? And I leave the Connects basically open all semester long, right? So you can do them again and get max points, right? So if you're looking for points, that's where they are. They're already available to you right now, day 1 till the day that I say, I'm calculating grades, y'all. This is it. Make sense? And that way, too, like, you can do it once, right, as you're studying, and then you can do it again if you want to review for the test 2-3 days before the test. Make sense? Okay? You guys have the privilege of listening and seeing my face and my voice. My online students, not so much. I write this stuff down, but nobody reads it. Nobody follows my advice. And then they come crying to me when they fail the test. And I'm like, you failed your connects. You actually thought you were going to pass the test? I don't understand. You failed the quiz, but somehow you thought when you took the test you were going to be fine. It logically does not make sense, right? I'm not losing my mind. Not yet. Okay. All right. So there's a really cool activity that I had done with my students in the past where I actually drew on these whiteboards, and one of my students videotaped me. So I have that activity recorded and everything for you guys. And so if you watch it, and again, write information about what you learned from watching it, what you liked, what you didn't like, you'll get bonus points for that. So I'm going to also turn on that assignment for you guys today. That's this one you see listed in the grade book, but it has the wrong date. So I might even do that now. But I am done talking. I'm off my soapbox, right? I really do care about you guys. I want you to succeed. I spend a lot of time putting those Connect assignments together. Please do them.
What's this part C part of the NATE that's non-student?
Oh, yeah. It's really ugly. I'm going to make a lot of changes to it, but I'll post it ahead of time if you want.
No, we already finished it. You know,
oh, I thought I had posted it for you guys.
The only one that is student.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. I will find out right